Our term for today at Talk Like a Professor is spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare is a term popularized by Michael Harper in his 1970s book of the same name. While one would be correct in claiming that the term predates the book, the truth is that there are scant few references to spiritual warfare prior to this time, and some don't necessarily seem to have much to do with Harper's idea of warfare as individually combating demons. So, for example, Andrew Gray's The Spiritual Warfare appears to be mostly focused on warfare as a motif for quieting the lusts of the bodies. Moreover, there are plenty of examples of people fighting demons over the course of the history of Christianity. The difference? These are largely saints and other particularly holy figures. They're not the common on-the-ground believer. And this is where Harper's idea of spiritual warfare distinguishes itself. In his introduction, Harper encourages his audience to consider Christians living in antiquity. He claims that while soldiers were omnipresent in Rome, Christians talked about war against spiritual entities, demons, using spiritual weapons, prayer. He warns that the same warfare continues on to this very day, and that it impacts the average Christian on the street. So where does Harper see this warfare? Throughout the next few chapters, Harper argues that there is a growing evil supernaturalism in the world, which he identifies with spiritualism and the occult. I've made the argument in my book, Demons in the USA, that Harper is resurrecting the anti-spiritualist paradigm, a way of seeing the seances and Ouija boards of the spiritualist movement of the 1800s as inadvertently talking to demons. For Harper, this is a struggle that presages the end of time. How does one defeat this evil? Harper claims that it is first necessary to be pure, which he broadly defines as someone who has, quote, a passion for righteousness and a hatred of evil, end quote. More specifically, he encourages searching after the glory of God rather than one's own, fasting, and self-discipline. Once one has purity, power, and authority just sort of seem to naturally follow, power being the gifts of the Spirit, and authority being the belief that Jesus has given control over the demonic. Finally, knowledge of the Word is another important element in spiritual warfare. Here, Harper is simply referring to knowledge of the Bible, and this plays particular importance in the following chapters, as Harper carefully lays out sections of the Bible, including the so-called armor of God passages from Ephesians 6, and articulates how they can be understood and used against the demonic. From here, the idea of spiritual warfare explodes. Book after book on the subject comes to be published in charismatic Christian circles. A movement is born. Modern-day Christians, especially charismatic Christians, are carrying on an ongoing battle with literal personified evil. They're fighting the devil with purity and prayer. And this ongoing combat with demons has a name: spiritual warfare.